Hey guys, it's 2023 and we've got a whole new year ahead of us. And in this video, we've got the Arrma Big Rock. Now this one came out a while ago and we were fully aware of it. It's basically based on the Centon 3S chassis, but it's got some changes to it that are pretty cool. Now we've seen people running these and we kind of sidestepped this truck, and I'm not really sure why we did so, but I was in the hobby store just the other day and I asked them which cars are selling the most. And believe it or not, this is one of the hot sellers at the end of 2022. And that got me to thinking, maybe we should see what this is all about. So in this video, we're gonna get this thing out of the box. We're gonna see what makes it tick. I think I know what that is already, but we're gonna have a look at it, see what makes it what it is, and then we're gonna take it out and test it. Now, this is the first of the year and it is snowy and terrible outside, but we're gonna run it anyway and see how it handles those conditions. Then we'll bring it back inside, we'll tell you what happened, the good and the bad, and we'll give it our rating and see where it lands in our collection. Here we go, guys. This should be a lot of fun. Check this out. Okay, so let's get this thing out of the box. And the packet. So this is what comes in the box, and pretty sure this is the radio here. And as expected, it comes with the SLT3. Well, that's a little anticlimactic. There's no shine to this at all. It's got a matte finish to it, so it's really plain looking. I don't know, I suppose people really like this, but for me, it doesn't have a whole lot of character. It's just a matte black finish. And in my opinion, that's pretty much just laziness on the part of Arrma. Okay, so before we dig into the car, let's have a look at what comes in the packet. And of course, it does come with the SLT3. And this is a functioning radio. It does work well, its speed is good. I'm not a fan of how it fits in my hand, but it does function and it functions well. I like the ones that have a little more controls to them, but this one does work well. The spring tension is really good on both the trigger and the wheel. It just feels a little snug on my hand, but this is in a lot of the kits that we get nowadays, and for an RTR radio, this is not bad. Alongside that, we have our standard kit here, and I'd bust this open, but it looks a lot like every 3S kit out there. Has the manual with the explode and all the good stuff that you need in the manual section here, which shows you how things go together and whatnot. It also has a small rudimentary tool kit in there, and that's about it. There's some adjustments in there for the shocks. So there's little clips that go on the shock absorbers to adjust the spring tension, and that's all that comes in this. So it's just what you need with nothing more. Now the car doesn't come with a charger, and it doesn't come with batteries, and the radio needs 4 AA batteries to get it up and running as well. So the cost of the car, which was right around $350, $360, right in there, throw on some tax, well under $400 for the entire kit, still requires 2 or 3S batteries. It requires a charger and it requires batteries for the transmitter. Factor that in, you should be right about $450 if you buy the good stuff, which is not bad for a car of this size. This is a longer 10th scale vehicle, and in the truck category, that's pretty cool. It does have some decent tires and wheels, and what we're going to do next is get down inside this and show you what's up. So if you'll notice, I'm wearing a new hat here, and this one here is kind of cool. When you're working on these small items, it gets really difficult sometimes to see down into the components. And I did get one of these from a buddy. Actually, Rob bought this one for me. It's got a cob light on the front. This isn't an ad or anything, but this thing is really cool because you can turn it on and off with the wave of a hand and it brightens things up nicely. But this hat here, you just touch a button and now you've got lights, which is pretty cool when you're trying to see into a little cavity down inside of one of these cars. However, I still prefer this one. So this is the one I'm up to now. When you're working on these things, even if you have a lot of light, you cast shadow. And with all the small components in there, having light is a major thing. So let's get down inside of this and have a look-see. And first off, we'll go ahead and get the body off, and it feels pretty thick. It does have some shine on the inside. There is no strengthening in it at all. It's just a plastic shell. And that's to be expected in the 10 scale cars. So it does have a good look to the body itself. I just wish it had more character, that's all. If you're into the matte black finish and stuff, right on. That's just not for me. I have a love of primary colors and bright colors, to say the least. So this does look an awful lot like the Centon 3S on the inside. It has the same motor here, which is a 3200 kV. It's got a heat sink and a fan on it, which is excellent because these do run a little warm sometimes, and this will help keep the temperatures down. It does have a BLX 100 amp speed control. Those work really well. I haven't had any problems with those. It has an adequate servo, but I like to upgrade those once these go bad, and invariably they do. Now, looking in on the box, it said that it had more clearance in the steering because these plastic chassis cars, which is what this one is, have a tendency to grab rocks up in the steering, and it locks it and you can't turn. You have to turn it upside down, work the steering, the rocks fall out, and then you go back to playing. These new ones are a little better. Are they perfect? Absolutely not, because they still grab rocks. When you turn the wheels to such an extent like this, it casts them up here, they ricochet inside, and the larger nuggets can get trapped between the arm and the wall, they say on this one. And it does look like it has a bigger slot here now. So perhaps there's more room and it won't lock up as easily. That's something we'll find out later. In this video, we probably won't be able to tell whether that works or not because everything's covered in snow and we're gonna go out and bash in that stuff, so getting down to the gravel and stuff is not likely. So we won't be able to tell if that's a thing. However, true to Arrma's form, the tires that come on it are already pre-vented. No holes on the inside, vented on the outside, so it cannot hang on to water. It casts it out right away when it spins up. Centrifugal action is your friend when it comes to that. And these have that. It does have the plastic telescoping drive shafts all the way around, which is to be expected. And this wheelie bar looks an awful lot like the one that comes on the Vortex, which works pretty well. So if that's the case, that should be pretty nice as well. It does have a nice little pocket right here, and this pocket is for 2 or 3S batteries. When you buy batteries for these guys, take the body off and test them first. Make sure that they do go in the car. Nothing's worse than going to the hobby store and buying a battery and being all excited to play with it and then discovering it doesn't fit the vehicle. There's a lot of room in here, but there is still endpoints that you have to hit. Now, there are removable parts for different batteries, and odds are just about anything you buy is going to fit in here, but it's always good to be sure. It does have a plastic drive shaft down the center with a bearing support, which is really nice. Usually the bearing supports are needed in cars like the Creighton 4S because it throws so much horsepower at this plastic drive shaft that it can get out of pocket and sound like an egg beater. This bearing here helps a lot. I added one to each one of these 3S cars I get. I generally add a bearing to the center of the drive shaft just for that little bit of added support. It does have steel input bearings and shaft for the pinion on the differentials. The ring gear still looks like it's plastic, but the inputs or the pinions are all steel in there. And the teeth on these 3S cars are very large. It's not like the 6S cars at all. The 6S cars have a fairly fine gear mesh there, and we do have a lot of trouble with those stripping out. The 3S cars, on the other hand, have a much bigger gear pattern. And yes, we've ruptured a couple of them. Believe me, we earned it when we did that. But they lasted a long time before they finally gave up. And when you run metal against plastic, eventually something is going to give, but you get a real load of runtime out of it first. So having a look at the deflectors up front here, that should keep a lot of dirt out of the cavity here. But look, it's going to cast it up into the shell. It's going to fill it anyway. I'm curious to see if they've changed this on the motor system. We'll find out later. But usually they have a gap at the bottom, and any of the fine debris that goes in here winds up in the gearing there. And so we wind up taping that off to contain it so the fine dirt and debris doesn't get in there and just turn the gears into sandpaper and it destroys everything in there. It takes time for that to happen, but it does happen. And it takes a good malleable plastic tape to really hold up on there. And let's see, who is it? It's a really thick packaging tape, and it sticks really well. If you got something that you can put around it and tape on it and leave a little gap for the gearing and snap it in place, it'll do the job. Brand is not important as long as it sticks on properly. The rest of it, it does have plastic shock absorbers, and I am not a fan of those. I'll look into it here and see if the Creighton 4S shocks will fit this. Perhaps they will. I won't know until I look into it. So that's what the car is built like. And I gotta say, guys, the plastic chassis are pretty tough. They have a tendency to flex and bend and come right back into shape. We have broken a few of them, but again, that was well earned. We've completely destroyed more metal chassis than plastic chassis cars. The only thing that I wish that had is a center differential instead of a slipper. So it drives the front wheels and back wheels equally, as opposed to with a differential you can soften the fluid and overdrive the front wheels a little bit, gives you a little more control. It doesn't stand up as easily when you give it full pin. This is going to send 100% power to each set. So when you pin it full blast and get good traction, this is going to do that. And there's no way to combat that because it has a slipper in it. You can loosen the slipper, it takes some of the torque out of it, but it doesn't give you that grunt that you really want. You know, we like to run these things as they came out of the box. So in this video, we are gonna run this exactly like it is. We'll try it on 2S and 3S to see how it works, and then we'll be back inside. There's only one thing left to do, guys. Let's take it out and test it. Check this out. Okay guys, there you go. That's the running footage for the Big Rock, and the snow outside is hard. It had melted for a few days. We had kind of a lull in the cold weather, and then it got cold again and basically turned it all to ice. So what you saw in the footage was really quite brutal on the car, because if you'd break through the crust, and I could walk on most of the crust, but every once in a while the car would break through and it would grab a wheel and it would stop the car and cartwheel it. So the snow and ice was really brutal on it. So it was a good test that way. We were able to get her up to top speed on some pretty rough conditions for roadway, but it still got there. We ran it on 2S and 3S. Most of the jumping stuff that you saw from the ramp, the ramp stuff was all 2S, and we were able to get forward and back flips out of it, which was impressive for 2S. There's a lot to talk about for that one, so let's get straight into it. You know, the Big Rock is a 3S capable car, and that line from Arrma is all very much the same. As far as that goes, this has the longer chassis, which is the same as the Centon, and the drive systems are very much the same in most of those vehicles as well. The one exception to that is the Kraton 4S version 2 and version 1, which is a 4S system on a 3S chassis and differentials. So it's very much the same. It does have a chassis brace, but that's on that vehicle. This one here, it's a slightly slimmed down version of that. It's very fast, but with the 3S platform cars, and we touched on this lightly, it doesn't have a center differential, which means it's 50-50 on the power. So it sends all of the power equally to the front and the back. And when you get weight transfer, that causes more torque in the back, and it does cause swelling of the tires under acceleration, which can make this very squirrely. It's a lot better on 2S than it is on 3S as far as control goes. But let's be honest, guys, 3S is really exciting. And as promised, we ran this exactly as it came out of the box. There are literally no modifications to this vehicle whatsoever, and it did perform well. With the rough treatment that we gave it, it didn't break anything. We ran multiple batteries in sub-zero temperatures. Some of it was kind of warmer, but most of it was frozen, and it held up very well. Most of these smaller platform cars do that from Arrma. They do have failings within the car generally, but this one held up on the first attempt, and that is a good thing. We push these really hard, and we want to make sure what they can take. It did hold up, so that is good. The handling on it being a longer chassis was fair. I wouldn't go as far as to say it was awesome, but it was fair. It did handle well. And since this is in a budget class, in other words, vehicles under $500 for the channel, we rate those as budget class RCs. And since this is a budget class car, for that class, it did really well. All right, since we understand what the 3S platform is, and one of the saving graces for this is this, and that's the chassis design. The chassis on these is really forgiving. Each time we break one, it's usually across here, because this is where all the impact takes place. But we don't lose them very often, and it usually takes something real to break one. You don't just break one when you're out goofing around. We've hit posts and trees, not at full pin, but we've hit them significantly, and it hasn't hurt the chassis at all. It's held up really well, which is a good thing. These are pretty solid when it comes to that. If you're looking for something that's entry level that is going to test your abilities, the 3S platform is definitely there for that. They do run upward to about $500 when you get the high-end stuff, but generally you can get them a lot lower. And they just came out with the Boost series, which is similar to this, but with two-wheel drive and a brushed system, the way I understand it. And that will be even less expensive. So if you're getting into the hobby, that might be one way to go. We haven't tested any of those yet, but it's 2023 and the year has just started. So I wouldn't say we're not going to do that, but I can't confirm that we have any in the studio right now. Still, at that rate, these tires handled really good. They handle all types of terrain. That was really good. The motor was plenty powerful. The radio system had absolutely no issues, and after running the radio for a while, I forgot it was in my hand, and I did just fine with the SLT3. It does function, guys. I've tore that radio a new one in a few of these videos because I don't like the lack of controls they put in it. And what I mean by that, even when they had the STX2 out, that one had all the dual rates and that stuff on it, so you could tune it for what you want. It also had the power selector from 50 75, 100% on it as well. But if you've got dual rates, you don't really need that so much. You can turn the power down with the dual rate, but the problem was you lost brake too. So, and that's the way that works. When you switch it down in power, so let's say you have a 3S battery in this one, and you have the radio, here it is, it's this one. And on the back here is your selector for power. So what that does is, on 3S, you can kick it down to 50% power. It has less power because it draws less from the motor, from the battery, sends less to the motor, but it also affects the brakes. So if you got full power, you hit the brakes, it'll lock them and slide. If you're at 50%, it has less power to the brakes, less power to the throttle. So think of the throttle like this. You have a power arc, and in the center is neutral. So you have a power arc here. So when you throttle up, you can go all the way to full power and neutral. But then at the same time, you can go all the way to full brakes and neutral. What a dual rate system is it takes this power arc from center and it makes it smaller. Okay, so the farther you turn it down, the less movement you have within that power arc, but the smaller you make the power arc, the less power and brake you get because it shortens that up. It takes away the ability to hit 100%. The nice thing about that is when you're working dual rates, which this radio does not have, and you're on a track to where if you hit full pin and you're coming in and it's just too much and you brake in the corners and you lose control in the corners, with dual rate you can turn that down a little bit so you can come in a little hotter as far as your controller goes and handle that corner, which if you're handling that corner on the edge of where your car loses power and traction control, if you come into a corner and you're on the very edge but you can maintain traction, that's as fast as your car will handle that corner. But if you break traction, you lose. So the idea is to go out, usually if you're on a track of some sort, and you're going to be in any kind of, even if it's goofing around, it's racing of any type, what you want to do is in your practice run, get out there and play with your dual rates and set it so you can come into the corner where it's comfortable for you, turn the corner and work your throttle the way you normally would, and the car holds traction. Now, the most difficult part of that for me, look around. Every single car handles differently. It's just the way it is. If this is your only car, if the Big Rock is your baby and that's the one you love, awesome. That's great. It doesn't matter what car you have. If you have one that makes you smile, guys, you have the right car. And it doesn't matter what people say about it. If you don't mind wrenching on it, the parts aren't all that expensive, and that one makes you smile, you've got the right one. Stick with it. Now, the thing about that is, let's say we have a guy named Tony. Okay, Tony comes out and he's got a Big Rock and he's had it since version 1 came out and that's his only car. All right, I'm gonna go run with Tony. Cool, so I pick my Big Rock. Okay, so we both have Big Rocks. Should be an even match, right? No. Because Tony should wipe the floor with me because Tony only drives the Big Rock, which means his reflexes are dialed in for this one, and he's had the time to figure out how to make it run the way he wants it to. It doesn't matter my experience, it doesn't matter because I come off of all these different cars that handle differently, and in the first 5 laps, I have to remember how to drive this one, giving Tony the clear advantage over me, period. That's just how that works. People that race in series, which I've done for quite a while, people that race in series run the same car weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend. When they first get it, they scramble a little bit to get everything dialed in. After a couple of weekends, they've got most of the kinks worked out of their car and they are formidable. And some people you can push in a corner. Some people, and the ones you push in a corner that are great out front, you pass them and they panic and they try to catch back up and they never do recover. But if they're out front, they drive clean and awesome. There's people like that all over the place, but there's also people that it doesn't matter where they're placed. They concentrate just on their car and drive as good as they can, and they are to be feared. Because even when you're out front, they're not going to push to catch you. They're going to drive clean to catch you. And how do you do that? The dual rate allows you to set your car at its best power for the conditions. So if you're at the track, you set it up for its best conditions and run it. And you're doing as good as you can with that car. You take it outside, doesn't work at all. You have to tune it again for the conditions outside. You go out on the pavement, you can crank the dual rate all the way up, 100% traction, have some fun, but if it gets sketchy, you can back it up just enough to control the tire swell and keep control. That's the beauty of that, and that's why I ragged on this one, because that doesn't have that, which I really miss in this radio. That's why most of the time I switch these over to the DX5. Add to that, the radio system handled fine, the servo handled good, the motor never got warm, of course, with today's temperatures outside. That's not surprising. All of the fans and everything worked good. We had no gearing issues. We had no driveline issues. The one thing that I did notice with this is under 3S acceleration, that's 3, if you got good traction like pavement, it doesn't matter, wet, dry, whatever, the tires handle both very well. But the thing is when you have that kind of power, the tires expand. Okay, so that's cool. Let's have a look at it this way and I'll show you what I mean. So the tires here will expand. So this is the rear end of the car. So both of these get the power and they take off. Now, the thing about that is, as the tires expand, they don't always expand at the same rate. In other words, this is a differential. See how the tires turn in opposite directions? So if this tire has a bit more traction than this tire, this one's going to overspin and expand first. Okay, so if this expands more than this expands, the gearing on the expanded tire is higher than the gearing on the standard tire, which means you're going to get more speed out of this one than this one, and then once it hooks up traction, it's going to pull the car sideways. That's an issue with most of these 3S platform cars because you cannot bleed the power off to the front. The front and the rear are connected as one. You drive the backs, you drive the fronts. There's no changeover, there's no center differential. That makes these inherently a bit more squirrely than cars with a center differential. However, that being said, if you take some of the power away from it so the tires don't overspin the same way, that's not such a big issue, which is what it's like to run it on 2S. All right, let's take a second and take a look at the 3S platform as it goes. Now, we did add the Clayton to this because it's basically the same platform, but this one's 4S. So on the beginning here, and we'll get you down close so you can see these, and we'll do a flyover so you can see them with and without the bodies, but you got the Centon here, which is a fairly long chassis. Next to it, you have the Vortex, and all of these are brushless, guys. So you've got the Vortex here, and it's got a shorter chassis, so it's snugged down a little bit more, kind of like the Granite as far as that goes. Then you got the Big Rock, which has the same chassis for length as the Centon. Then you've got the Clayton, and the Clayton is bigger by far as that goes. So it's got the longer chassis yet. And the Clayton is an amazing vehicle. We love that one around here. It's just a smidge smaller than the 8-scale version, which is the 6S platform. And that one is a beast to play with, but still at the same time, it's designed the same way. Plastic chassis, slipper in the center, 4S power, bigger tires, but as they swell, it gets squirrely just the way the other ones do. When you run 4S in that, it does swell the tires and it can become a little unstable at full pin, but that doesn't take away from any of the excitement that the car builds. If it can get out of control, it's fast enough. But the same thing, when you get into the Centon, it's 3S power, small tires, and of course, that's these. So when you get a look at those, when those grow, if they don't grow evenly as well, the car will pull to one side. And some people could say that's torque vectoring. In other words, as the motor rotates, it can create torque, more pressure on one side, and full-size vehicles suffer from this. I don't really think that's the case. I think because if you take that and put it on the stand and spin it up, the tires balloon good, but not every tire is identical. So this one might balloon just a little faster than this one, which will pull it hard on that side, which will make it sketchy. Because once you get that kind of power on the rear, it doesn't matter if the front wheel lifts because there's no differential in the center. It'll still put all the power to the back and blow one tire up, which will make it sketchy at speed. Once you're rolling and everything's all expanded, speed's not a problem, but getting there is where the issue comes from. And most of these suffer from that same thing, and the Big Rock is no different. So let's take a second here and get you a full flyover, and we'll show you all 4 of these vehicles with and without the bodies. All right, so if you caught that, you'll notice that they all had basically the same running gear inside as far as this goes. The Centon does not come with a fan. It does come with the heat sink. It does have the 100 amp speed control in it. The radio does not have a gyro. None of these have that. But at the same time, the build is the same from the bearing to the drive shafts. They don't all come with bearings, so it's something you can add if you want that stability to keep this from being a problem. It's not that huge of a deal, but it is a pretty good deal. The Centon we have is a version 1, which means it doesn't have the modified pocket for the steering. So if you're going to run these in gravel, guys, expect to have steering problems. It's not a deal breaker, but it's still, at the same time, it's not cool to have to stop and flip your car all the time. These should be better at version 2, but the version 1s did suffer from that a lot. And we do have some version 2s here on some of this stuff, and they still suffer from that. Other than that, this one does have the plastic shocks on it. And these ones are not leaking, so it is holding up pretty good on that aspect. Still, not a fan of the plastic ones. I like the build of the aluminum ones. They're easy for me to deal with, and I just like them better. So we may, once these start to leak, we're not going to change anything unless it requires it. But once they start to leak, perhaps we'll get into that. So now it's time to ask our 4 questions. And if you watch the channel, you know what they are. Is it fun? Is it durable? Is it worth the money? And where does it stack up in our collection? This is 2023, guys, and things are about to change here. We're going to go with the old format here on this video, but shortly we're going to split the list. And the reason for that is we're going to have upper end cars and budget RCs in our list now, so there will basically be 2 lists, and each list will reflect what the car is on the bench. This one would be in the budget RC list under $500. Once a kit hits $500, it goes into the upper range of the better kits. And the problem is, the way we're doing it now is, the way we started the channel was the cars that we would grab first are the ones on the list. Okay, inherently, the higher end cars are the ones you're going to grab. They're the most fun. So a car like this will never break into the top 10 simply because it's a budget RC. It doesn't take away from the fun of the car, guys. It's just, you get what you pay for a lot of the time with these things. And when you pay less than 5, less than 4, that was $350, so less than $400, don't expect too much out of it. So when we split the list, we will split it by upper end and budget, and that's what we're going to go with. But as far as this one goes, this one's going to sit with our normal platform because we haven't got that far yet in our division for the channel. So as far as that goes, let's get on with question number 1. Is this thing fun? Yeah, it's fun, especially when you consider what it cost. This cost easily half of what one of the bigger ones costs. It's still fast, it's still out of control, it still jumps good, and you get everything you need except battery, charger, and batteries for the radio. Now, the batteries, depending on where you buy them, you can buy them pretty cheap for a 2S or a 3S battery. They don't get too crazy on cost unless you start going with great big milliamp hour, and it's easily a better choice in our opinion here. And keep in mind, this is all our opinion, guys, but it's easily a better choice to buy 2 smaller batteries, charge them both, than to buy 1 big battery. And the reason for that is, and a lot of guys talk about this with 6S, but I don't agree to that. I'm talking about a single battery car, which this is. So if you buy 2 3S batteries that are $3,000, $3,300, or $5,000, you can keep the cost down. Okay, they fit in the car real well and they don't add too much weight. Okay, that's nice because it's offset. The weight is one side of the, check it out. And I know you've seen it, but I'm going to show it to you one more time just to get this little bit of information home. Batteries on this side. Okay, it's one side of the car. The motor and speed control only weigh so much. If you put a 5,000 milliamp hour 3S battery in this, it balances the car. That's what it's designed to have in it, and it balances the weight from this side to that side pretty nicely. If you put a super big one in here, let's say you put a 7600 in there or a 9000 milliamp, now you've got more weight on that side, which unbalances the car. If you need that kind of runtime, simply buy 2 of the 3S batteries at the 5000 milliamp or smaller. charge them both, take them out. Yes, you'll have to stop and change a battery, but you'll still get the same run time and the balance of the vehicle will be better. So that being the case, when you take a look at this, for cost-wise, as far as that goes, we're keeping the cost down here so you can have fun at a lower cost, which makes it even more enjoyable because you don't have so much weight out there, so much money out there. I've got friends that have bought into some of these cars and I say, hey, let's go bash, man. This will be fun. Let's go do this. We're going to have a blast. No. And they won't go. And the reason they won't go is there's $800 sitting on the shelf. I'm not going to break that. For them, it becomes a trophy. And if that's what they want it for, cool. Trophies are cool. Shelf queens are everywhere, right? Our shelf queens get used. There's a difference. So he didn't want to spend any money on arms or whatever you might break, and therefore he never went bashing with us. And he has an RC with batteries, charger, and everything, and doesn't use it. But if he had a lower budget one too, hey dude, let's go bash, he'd grab that in a heartbeat and go with us because his prize will be undamaged on the shelf. That being said, that brings the fun rating up because more people will participate. At least that's our take on this. So as far as fun goes, I'm going to give this one, since it's in the lower tier, but it was fun, I'm going to give this one 9 out of 10 for fun. Because I really did have a blast with this thing. It goes just about anywhere you want it to. We didn't get to take it out in nature. This is just the winter test on this, but for running in the hard pack snow, the ice and that kind of thing, it handled really well. The tires are small enough, it wouldn't handle powder all that good, and I don't know how it will respond on dirt. But in today's list, we're just gonna go with 9 out of 10 for fun. And question number 2, is it durable? Well, we literally broke nothing in the car. We didn't really have any high traction situations other than pavement to really get it up and test it for that. But we did jump into ice. We did stab the arms down good once in a while. And it did come to a few immediate stops, and we still suffered no breakage, period. There's no breakage at all within the car. We had a good look at it. Everything is functioning well. None of the arms are fractured. There's scratches and scars underneath it. But there's no actual breakage within the car, which sets it up nice and high. Now, it is winter and we haven't had the chance to really push it off of all the nasty stuff we normally run on, and I'm going to take a point off for the time of year because, one, when you're in the snow, you can't get the speed up that you would get in dirt. You just can't. You can try and get a run at it, but as soon as the tires break traction, you're not getting full speed. And that's the situation we ran in. For durability, it did break nothing, but the situation didn't dictate full judgment on that. So we're going to give this one 8 out of 10 for durability because everything we put it through, it handled nicely, and it may have the potential to do better, but this time of year, we just can't tell you any more than that. In the cold weather, it held up beautifully and nothing broke. We're going to give this one 8 out of 10 for durability. And question number 3, is it worth the money? Yes, it's worth the money. Guys, it's $350 for that. Now, I understand that it can be jaded around here when you look at all the cars on the shelves and stuff and you go, okay, well, that's a cheap one. Not if you're scrimping and saving for these, it's not. If you're 14 years old and you have to do all the side chores you can to save up the money to get one, that's a large expenditure. That's a lot of money. But if you're into the hobby deep, it seems like not much. But that's not the case. What you get for $350, not counting the battery systems and charger, is definitely good. The cost, the drivability, the fun rating, everything that plays a role. By the time you're into this, if you spend $100 on a charger and batteries, that's a pretty good deal on charger and batteries. You add that, you're at $450 out the door. But if you have to spend a little more, you're still under $5 for this one with all the bells and whistles, which is cool. There is room for upgrades, but we're not going to upgrade anything until it breaks, which it hasn't yet. So it is worth the money. Where are we going to place this one? Well, it's not low budget, which is $250 or down. It's a little above that, which takes it up in the ratings a little bit as far as that goes. We're going to put this one at 8 out of 10 for value. And the reason we're going to do that is because, one, it is still in the $350 range without the batteries and stuff, which as far as budget RC goes is still kind of high end for that. If you get around $400 or $500 in a budget RC, you're paying a lot. but I really do think you get what you pay for with this one. It is fairly durable. It is really fast on 3S. It's totally controllable and still fast on 2S. The radio works good. We had no motor issues, no servo issues, no speed control issues. Everything worked as advertised. I think it's a little bit on the ugly side, but that's my personal preference. I did find a blue original body for that, so I ordered the blue one. So on the shelf you'll see it with the version 1 body on it, because I want something with a bit more style than just flat black. As far as value goes, 8 out of 10 for value, guys, because that's just what we think is fair. And question number 4, where does this stack up in our collection? You already know this 3S budget RC isn't going to make the top 10 list, not yet. We'll see where it lands when we split the list up into monetary valuation for each set, but at this time, this will not make the top 10. It's hard to get something like this into the top 10 with all the high-end cars we have around here, so splitting the list is definitely necessary, and for 2023, we will make that happen. So if you haven't already, don't vote, wait a tick. We don't do that anymore. If you guys like the content, or if you've learned anything at all, please feel free to bash that like button and help us help others. That's the idea here, is we want to get the content out, show you what we've learned so that you can make an informed decision when you make a choice. We never tell you what you have to do. We never tell you this is the only way. All we do is show you what works for us and what we've learned. Are we infallible here at the channel? Absolutely not. We make mistakes like everyone else does, but our diligence and our attention to detail is how we try and keep that to a minimum. We like to help the community. That's why we started this channel. You know, when I first even discussed starting a YouTube channel, the whole idea was just to share videos with my friends. That was it. They got kind of interested in it, and we created AJ Jam Studios. And it's been an awesome ride ever since. Been at this most of my life. Most, guys. When we started, we had to build these from scratch. There were no kits out. But at the same time, I've seen the evolution of the RC hobby grow, and it's an amazing thing. And it's one of those deals to where I've spent a lot of money doing this. And keep in mind, guys, we buy all these cars, and we're not by any means rich. We live day to day, just like everybody else, paycheck to paycheck. Tina and I hold down full-time jobs just to be able to do this and make the house payment, make the car payment, and groceries. It all takes a hit, but what we like is being able to share what we learn with the community, and that's really where it's at. So if you find any value in the channel, if you find that you've learned something, or you think there's something about it you may watch again so you can follow along, just bash the like button. It helps our content spread to others. So hey guys, for AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep bashing, guys.